Hey everybody, welcome back to the Well-Read Podcast. This week's episode is a really special one because we actually have our first guest on the podcast, Paul and Terri Danis. We actually typically film our podcast at the Bridge Coffee House, and Paul and Terri run the Bridge and live at Ministries, so they're going to come talk about some verses in Matthew and how to serve others with the love of Jesus.
Yeah, so this week's episode was a little shorter than normal. We sat down with Paul and Terri for 15-20 minutes and just kind of picked their brain and heard their hearts about how they applied these verses, and I think it's a great episode. I think you guys are really going to love it. And we are, again, so grateful to Paul and Terri, for coming out and being on the podcast. We loved it so much, and we cannot wait for you guys to hear it.
Without further ado, Paul and Terri and Leslie and Isaac.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Well-Read Podcast. As usual, I am Isaac.
I'm Leslie.
And we have our first guests with us here today. We have Paul and Terri Danis. Thank you guys so much for being here with us. We really appreciate it. And for those of you who don't know, he's actually the owners of the building that we're in. Or remind me of your titles. What are you guys to the Bridge, to Live It Ministries? Kind of explain.
Yeah, that's a great question because most folks are familiar with ownership of a business. So we're a nonprofit, a 501c3. So it's the community that owns the ministry.
Very cool.
We're the shepherds, I guess, is the best way to put it. So I'm the president of Live It Ministries, and Terry's the executive director.
And we have a board of directors that govern it.
Very nice. Awesome. Well, like you saw there, they essentially, would the word be run?
Right.
Okay.
Run would be the good word.
Okay, so they essentially run the building that we've been recording our podcast in. Thank you guys so much for allowing us to come use the facility. It's been a great location so far, and we plan to continue using it as long as you'll allow us. We do really appreciate it, so thank you guys so much for that.
Absolutely.
That's what God called us to do, is have a building so people could do things like this to further the kingdom.
That's right.
So we're thrilled to have you do this.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
And it's a really special place to us because we actually met in 6th grade, lost touch, and then when we reconnected later, the first place we met up was the Bridge.
Really?
So,
Yeah.
yeah, so very special in our story.
Full circle there.
I love that.
Yeah. So, as you guys heard, Live It and the Bridge is a ministry, and something that, and I'll let you talk more about that, but something that we really want to do with our guests on our podcast is kind of show how they live out the well-read mission statement, how they apply the things that they learn from scriptures. And we feel like with Live It and the Bridge Ministries, you guys do that such an excellent job. And so I'll let you pick up here and just kind of talk about some of the scripture and get us started.
Yes, so the scriptures that we wanted them to talk about, it's in Matthew, so I'll read them and we can kind of get into it. So it's Matthew 20:25 through 28. But Jesus called them to him and said, "You know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their great ones exercise authority over them. It shall not be so among you. But whoever would be great among you must be your servant, and whoever would be first among you must be your slave. Even as the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many." So we wanted you guys to talk about these verses because you live out this servant leadership so well. So can you guys kind of talk about what you do with Live It and how you apply these verses to your life?
Well, and again, when you mentioned this is what we were going to be talking about, it's like, yeah, we can relate to that. So just to give you a little history, Live It back in January was 13 years old. So, and we had Live It really started for two reasons. God started Live It, pushed us out of the church into all the churches for two main reasons. One was to identify the widow and the orphan, as James 1:27 talks about, true religion, but to identify the needs in the community, where there were needs, because ultimately what Live It says, Live It, taking the Bible out of the box, is getting people within the church and outside of the church to use their gifts and talents to serve others. The word says that the two greatest commandments, or the two most important things according to Jesus, and that's kind of important. We follow, what he says is to love God and love each other. So we kind of help people do the love each other part.
I consider us like a local mission organization. So it gives us, when we get people that need help that we find through, other organizations that we work with, whether it be the sheriff's department, a home health agency, the senior center, churches themselves, call and say we have somebody that we found that really could use some help. Then we go to work connecting that need to the kingdom workers that want to go out and use their gifts and talents to meet those needs. So that's kind of how it works as far as us. We're just a mediator between the two of organizing, evaluating. I think one of the pastors said we vet the situation so we know it's safe for volunteers and just kind of put it all the pieces together. Now, I would say as far as the scripture itself goes, I was reading on it and just kind of studying a little bit about what it meant to me. And, right before that, it's talking about how James and John wanted to be, their mom kind of brought the question up about, hey, can they sit to the right and the left of Jesus? And, I think we really live in a world where we want to feel important and we want what we do to make us feel important. But that's almost like the opposite of what the word says. It says that we, like Jesus, because he's our ultimate example of actually doing that. He was the one that came and just surrendered his whole life for us. And so it's the reverse of what we kind of live fleshly in this world to want to do. It's the very opposite. We should, instead of want to rule or reign or be important, we should be humble and serve and love and forgive and, use our gifts and talents he gave us. Just use him as our example, So.
Yeah, I once told somebody that had a real challenge when they'd park in the parking lot of Walmart or whatever. They'd go in and when they'd come out, they'd always go the wrong way to find their car.
Oh, that was me.
Yeah, I wasn't gonna use names, but okay. So Terri usually goes the wrong direction. Well, if you look at our culture is it's about money and possessions and things and status and all that kind of stuff. But Jesus taught us that we need to go the opposite direction because it's in the opposite direction. Humility, not being, all about ourselves, giving to others, serving. Those are the things that he did and that we're called to do. But it runs so counter from our culture and what we're being taught that we ought to do,
Yeah.
I'll have to say what made me feel good, though, is I thought, well, here these guys are, they're right there with Jesus. In the flesh, they're right there. And they struggled with it.
Well, what's interesting is that, it also says the rest of the disciples were, upset about this question. So, they had that pride, too, because they're like, why are James and John asking that question? Because I want to be at Jesus.
Yeah, I know.
Right?
Yeah.
That's where it started there in 25 was where they came
Yes.
and said, well, hey, So, you're right. I was reading that, and I was like, see, so it's just kind of human nature that we have it in us. But it did give me a little bit of relief. It's like, well, how could you expect this many years later, and we're not walking in the flesh to see him? But I don't know, maybe it made it harder, maybe it made it harder. Now we've got Holy Spirit to give us that faith and grow in it. I don't know. I always wondered, how would I be if I were there with him in person,
Yeah. I think that's a great question and a great thing to think about is what would I do if I was right there, in their shoes? And I know that that's something to really think about, and you could ponder that question for forever if you wanted to. And something that really stuck out to me when she first came to me about the verse and said, these are the verses I want to talk about. Something that was really interesting, and I actually didn't pick up on it at first because we did 25 through 28. Well, Matthew 20:26 is actually my verse for the year. And I was going back and forth between a few, and that's the one that says, those of you who would be great among you must be the least among you. Something like that, paraphrase, essentially saying, my word for the year is lead. So just got married last year. Leslie and I did. Still stepping into new roles of leadership, both at home and at work in my job. And lead was the word that God put on my heart. And this verse kind of came right along with it. And so it was so interesting to me when you picked this verse, because I thought, well,
It slipped
that's
my mind.
yeah. She didn't even realize it when she had picked this verse, but that is my verse for the year, and something that I think, you guys, whether, and I'm sure you do realize this, but whether you realize it or not, whether you're doing it intentionally or not, by serving others, you are leading others in the community, in the surrounding areas, here in Seymour where we record the podcast, but not just here, outreach in Sevierville and in South Knoxville, things like that. Whether you're trying to or not, you're leading others by setting an example, which is exactly what Jesus did. And I think that that's part of what's so powerful about these words is, he says, serve others, and that's, like you say, with love God, love people, that's almost as simple as it gets. It's not always in our nature to do so. Sometimes that it takes a little extra work, but in doing that, that is how you lead others. And that's exactly what Jesus did his whole life, his whole ministry. And again, I can't brag on you guys enough with how I feel like you guys just live it out so well.
Well, thank you.
Absolutely.
I don't know that I feel that way, but thank you. We try, we do our best. But the thing is that we are so grateful, I guess, is that we were called and we do get to do this. And we want to just share that with anybody else that has that same calling on their life and that they want to serve others. And so if they can't find somebody to serve on their own, I mean, we have friends that, because we do what we do, they started going to their neighbors and some of the elderly that lived in their neighborhood, they would serve them and they'd say, well, that's what you guys do. And we're just felt like we should go do that. And I mean, they've done it for years.
Yeah.
One couple that I think of, and I mean,
Wow.
they've done it well. Like they're always there. They're always checking on them. And I just think that's so awesome to see that it's contagious, so to speak, and the elderly, unfortunately, in our country are not revered the way that I feel like is pleasing unto the Lord.
Yeah.
Other countries do it so much better than we do. And so there's opportunities here to honor them and to serve them like Jesus would, be pleased with doing. So, and that's what's great is that we get to put it together and give that opportunity. So if you can't go on a mission trip out of country, which I know is exciting and everybody loves to do, but maybe can't afford it, there's opportunities right here in their own backyard.
That's right.
So what would you say to a listener that's thinking in themselves right now, I want to jump in and serve others? What would be their practical next step to do that?
The first thing I would ask them is, do you belong to a church? Because we work with a lot of the churches in the area. And so they may not realize it because it's maybe not in their brochure they get on Sunday or the bulletin, whatever, or maybe they don't get a bulletin. Maybe they're new. But I would say, do you belong to a church? And if so, then check out with your mission pastor or your executive pastor, whoever. Do you guys work with Live It? Because a lot of times the church likes to come out together in a group, and it's more comfortable for that individual to be with people they know. Sometimes they also do it with they're in a civic organization, Rotary or the Kiwanis or Boys and Girl Scouts or Boys and Girls Club, or some of those work with us here locally.
Yeah.
You might think of some others. But checking with them. And then sometimes we've had businesses, like we've had banks that would come together as a group. It's not necessary that they do that. They could go to our website, which is www.liveit.care, liveit.care, and they can fill out a thing saying, I want to volunteer. If they wanted to do, like drive an elderly person to the doctor, pharmacy, grocery store, well, that's an individual type of serving. We are in desperate need. So we're in desperate need
There you go.
of drivers, and it's something that they can do on their own time.
Yeah.
There's an app you put on your phone. It tells you Margaret's got a doctor's appointment next Thursday, and you go, oh, well, I'm going to the grocery store. Maybe I could take her, drop her off, and pick her back up. And, they usually don't take just 2 or 3 hours. We try to cut it off at 3 hours.
Yeah.
But they could run them to the doctor, run them to the grocery, and then run them home.
Wow. Makes
So-
it very easy.
It is very easy because we're not calling you demanding that you
Yeah.
do it. We're just giving you that opportunity, and then you go in there and say, "Oh, I'll do it." And there's a little bit of training that goes on, and insurance that we have that covers their car on top of their.
So let me tell you not to cut you off, but let me tell you the easiest way you can serve. And you don't even have to be a coffee drinker to serve this way. You can come into this coffee house, Starbucks, whatever. But if you come here, we have these little plaques that you can put on your table. And when you put that on your table, it says that you're open to having a conversation with somebody who may just need somebody to talk to.
Wow.
We call them chit chat tables. And it's really easy because you get a cup of coffee and you sit at a table and you say, Lord, you just bring me somebody to talk to. But right now we're in a time in our world where loneliness and isolation is it's the pandemic. It's the pandemic before the pandemic.
Yeah.
Before COVID was COVID, people were lonely and isolated. COVID just blew it out over the top. And so an easy place to start just serving is just making yourself available. Whether it's, Starbucks or here or the supermarket, just be looking for opportunities just to be friendly to somebody.
Yeah.
That is so true. We have so many people that are so lonely, and so they don't have to be gifted in any specific area. If they just want to go visit somebody, they want to come to the coffee house, our ultimate goal is to make that person understand why we do what we do.
Yeah.
And why we do what we do is because it's the love of Jesus in our heart to love others. And when they feel like someone cares about them, then their whole outlook can change.
Yeah.
Just when Kimber and I go out and visit every referral we get that that says they have a need that we feel like we can do something about, and that's pretty much all of them. So we go out and visit with them, and sometimes the people will say, "Thank you so much for coming. Just the fact that someone cares, that you took the time to come out here and talk to me." And I never can promise them it's going to get done because I don't know that there's going to be people volunteer to do it, or I don't know we'll get the money to fix whatever needs fixing if there's something needs fixing or whatever. But we always say, we'll pray about it, and it's not required that they know the Lord. And if they don't, we pray that they will come to know it just from our hands and feet loving on them. We don't preach to them. If they want to be preached to, we'll be there if they ask, but we don't, that's not what we do. We just go in there and we love them and we care about them, and that can make a difference in somebody's life.
Absolutely.
Big time.
I want to thank you all for doing leadership. Leader is the word?
Lead. Yeah.
Lead.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I want to tell you, I want to encourage you because you're leading.
Mm-hmm.
When I first found out about what you all were doing, it's like, this is so cool. Younger people, taking the initiative to start something that is so absolutely necessary. Younger people, they go to college, whether they do or not, they're under this cultural thing of, be yourself. It's all about you. It's not about taking care of other people. It's not about Christ. It's not about sharing yourself with being vulnerable. It's not about being the least of these. And you all are taking the Bible. We call it, what we do is take the Bible out of the box and into the community. Well, you're doing pretty much the same thing. You're doing it in a medium that we don't work in. So we're very appreciative that you're allowing us to do this. But I want to encourage you all for what you're doing and just pray blessings over you because it's hugely important. And so thank you for leading in what you do. That's great.
In any way we can help.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you. You guys have done so much to help us already just by letting us use this space.
Yeah.
So we appreciate it so much.
Well, I would just like to let everybody know that does listen to this, that, there's so many ways to volunteer. It doesn't even have to be through Live It. I mean, we'd love to be here and we'd love to help get them connected to anything in the community there is that would be helpful. But do something. I would encourage you, do something. God created you for a purpose, and He created you to love others. And so if you're having a challenge or a question, come to any four of us. We would be so happy to help you in that area. I know you guys would. We would.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But just knowing why God created you. Why are you here? I
Yeah.
mean, what's your life about? What are you going to leave that's meaningful and impactful in this world that we
Yeah.
live in that needs it so desperately? So,
Mhm.
I think this is awesome what you're doing, and I hope that somebody out there will reach out and you will know that they were watching and
Yeah.
listening, and this made a difference in their life.
Yeah.
It works both ways. That's what we see. That's what's so exciting is you think you're going out there and you think you're helping this person that has a need. And I cannot tell you how many times the person that went out and helped are the ones that came back and said, "Oh my goodness, I thought I was going to be blessing them, and I am the
I got
one that was
I got
so
more out of that than they did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like,
That's
that's the
awesome.
way God works.
That's right.
He doesn't
Yeah.
leave anybody out.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. And so to kind of bring, everything full circle, you were mentioning kind of seeking after what's my purpose. And it's all in the Bible.
Yeah, that's right.
Jesus gives us those answers. And that
Right.
kind of, to bring it all full circle with Well-Read's mission statement, is to teach people, to teach people the Bible, right? That's first and foremost. But we also want to teach them how to read it and why to read it. And I think that statement you brought up of what is my purpose in life, that's part of why you read it.
Mhm.
So
Amen.
kind of tie it all full circle there.
Yes. Well, thank you guys again for being our first guests on the podcast. That's huge. We just appreciate you guys, letting us use the space, being on the podcast, and just everything you do in the community. We just appreciate it so much. Wow, that was an incredible conversation, an amazing episode. We are so grateful again to Paul and Terri for being the first guests on the Well-Read podcast. They had so much wisdom to bring to the table, and I know that you guys, as our listeners, learned so much from them, and I'm sure you guys enjoyed it. So thank you, Paul and Terri.
Yeah. If you guys are interested in getting involved with Live It Ministries or serving in general, or you just want to learn more about what Paul and Terri do or what Live It does, we're going to put all the links down in the description of this video. So if you're watching on YouTube, check the description. If you're listening on Spotify or podcasts, wherever you listen, go check out the video. That's where all the links are going to be. And as usual, all of our regular links, Instagram, website, all that stuff is going to be in the description. But don't go anywhere, because we have a very, very special announcement. Leslie and I have been working on something in secret for the last 6 months, and today we are officially announcing it. We have already announced it on Instagram, so if you don't follow us there, you should, because that's a reason why, because you've already heard about it. But if you don't follow us there, 1, go follow us on Instagram, and 2, this is the first time you're hearing about our short film, Many Are Called. Now, Many Are Called is a Bible short film based around a true story from the Bible, a very well-known Bible story, but we're telling it to you from the characters' perspectives. Here's the catch. We're not telling you what story it is until the very end of the film. That's what you have to figure out. So you got to come watch it. You got to come see if you can figure out what the story is, because that's what makes it so exciting. We're telling it to you from the character's perspective, because you got to think. You got to put yourself in the character's shoes. They did not know what they were living out. Something that we took heavy inspiration from was The Chosen. And the characters, I shouldn't say characters, the people that The Chosen is centered around is Jesus and the 12 disciples. And they did not know what they were living through. And The Chosen does a great way.
Well, Jesus did.
Well, the disciples did not know what they were living through in the moment. And The Chosen does an amazing job at showing that. Showing the reality, the humanity of these Bible stories that we grew up, knowing, or even if we didn't grow up knowing them, these Bible stories that are very readily available to us. So, Many Are Called is taking very heavy inspiration from that. Is very similar. It takes a story from the Bible that's very well known, and it tells it to you from the character's perspective. We've done a lot of research, we've done a lot of studying to make this as accurate and as great as it can possibly be. So, Many Are Called launches on Kickstarter July 1st. So if you guys are interested in backing the project or just sharing it at all, make sure you go down to the link in the bio where you can pre-save our Kickstarter campaign. Make sure you share that with your friends, your family, whoever is involved. If you're interested in The Chosen, you're going to love this. If you know people who are interested in The Chosen, you're going to love this. Here's the catch. Many Are Called is going to be on Kickstarter and on Kickstarter only, meaning if we don't raise the funds, it's not happening. So make sure you go to Kickstarter, and if you're not aware of what that is, look it up. It's readily available, but essentially it's us pitching a project to you, the public, and you deciding whether or not it's worth funding to completion. So we've got the Kickstarter project up there. It's almost ready to go. So pre-save the link down below. Just enter your email. That'll sign you up to be notified. One side note, if you are one of the people who backs within the first 24 hours, you're going to get an $80 value regardless of what price that you donate. So if you donate $10, if you donate $5, whatever it is, within the first 24 hours, you're going to get an $80 value, an exclusive $80 value only for the first 24 hours. So make sure you're one of the first people to back. Make sure you have that pre-save link down there. After 24 hours, it goes away. After 24 hours, you got to give the full 80 if you want to get what comes with it. So that is Many Are Called. That's the Kickstarter campaign. You're going to be hearing a lot more about it as we go on, but I did want to officially announce that to you guys, to tell you about it, and to make sure that you check that link down there. You do not want to miss out. I'm serious. If you like The Chosen, you're going to love Many Are Called. So that's the podcast we wanted, and we are so excited, and we wanted to officially announce that to you guys. So make sure that you check it out. Check out all the links, all the websites, all the things. You guys know how to work YouTube. Feel free and check out the description. Other than that, that's our episode. Thank you guys for sticking around. Thank you guys for listening, for watching if you're watching on YouTube. And make sure you subscribe so you can get more episodes, more content. Check out the website. We'll do monthly blogs, monthly podcasts, monthly teachings, and occasional creative projects like the one I just told you about. So that's our episode. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.